Hi everyone, and welcome to the Unit 3 comments. As I do every unit, I take some time, read your drafts, and I will comment on them individually, but I sort of like to do a collective commentary based on how the drafts meet or fail to meet the grading highlights or the rubric that I'll be using for this unit. So this is our unit on the popular piece of the commentary. And the first grading highlight is that the author shows his or her expertise in an accessible way. So we all know that you've spent Unit 2 really becoming experts in your field, doing all the scholarly work, presenting things in sophisticated ways. And this is your chance to take that information, to take all the scholarship, all your analysis, all your expertise, and to translate it for a popular and accessible audience. This means getting rid of jargon, breaking down complex terms, spelling things out for us without dumbing it down. The second point is that you have a concise introduction that sets the stage for the rest of the piece. This is really, I can't emphasize how important this is enough, because losing the reader in the introduction is so easy. It has to be engaging, it has to be compelling, it has to tell us where you're headed as a writer and what we should expect. So it has to do a lot of different things. Most importantly, I think it has to interest us and tell us where it is going to go. So if some of the more successful ones I saw maybe told a story or set up a metaphor or defined some terms, but in some way it really caught our attention and kept us wanting to read on. The third grading highlight is the appeal to audience investment, including a notation of audience and goal. This is very important before the essay even starts. You should have something that says audience, and you should list your audience, and you should have something that says goal and list your goal. This is even before the title of the paper. This is important because it's critical for you in helping you write to a particular audience with a particular goal, but it's really helpful for the reader to understand what kind of persona we're supposed to be seeing this through. Be sure your audience is not a group of experts. I know some of you sort of said, oh, this would appeal to, this group of experts. No, you're really going to want a pretty basic popular audience. And then the goal should be pretty specific. What do you want them to do? Another important thing regarding the audience investment is you sort of have to make your audience care. So in some way you either need to spell out or imply why this particular issue is important for the audience to read about. And that can be tricky. And it can sometimes be set up in the introduction quite successfully. Okay, the fourth one are salient details and specific examples. This should sort of go without saying, but I know sometimes in translating the expertise, you're not going through and adding specific examples, because an expertise or an expert type paper is less likely to need examples, but your reader here needs examples. It's part of the appeal. It's what's going to engage us to read on. So any which way you look at it, you're going to need examples. And they should be interesting and engaging, and they're really what brings everything to life in this paper. The fifth grading highlight has to do with syntax and vocabulary, and that they're consistent levels with your proposed audience, and you're going to want to use accessible language and metaphors. What I think is interesting about this is that it's sort of a fine line that you have to walk. You don't want to have a too sophisticated analysis. In other words, you don't want to have your expert research paper in there. But you're also not looking to dumb it down. This is not translating it into really short sentences with short words. You're dealing with a smart audience. It's just not an audience that shares your expertise. So you'll want to be compelling. You don't want to be scholarly, but you will want to find ways to interest the audience, but also treat them as smart people. So some of you really sort of translated in the process, took out some of the sophistication and dumbed it down a little bit. You're going to want to raise that back up. So negotiating audience, again, is a pretty important point in here. The sixth grading highlight is a high level of clarity. You're going to need transitions. You're going to need some of the work. You're going to need to do some of the work that you might expect an expert reader to do. So when you make an observation in an expert paper, you can assume that the expert reader will draw conclusions. In a popular piece, when you make an observation, you can't leave it up to the reader to draw the conclusion. First of all, because she or he may not draw the same conclusion. Second of all, in a popular piece, it is the writer's job to provide all of the information. So be sure to follow through after you make a great point and make sure that you're really driving your point home. The seventh issue is a responsible and careful attention to counter perspectives, qualifications, and limitations. This is true in op-ed pieces, and in fact, in most of the pieces you're writing, even if you're writing a profile, there is an underlying oppositional force to it that will only help you strengthen your argument or strengthen the person you're talking about if you engage it a little bit. The eighth thing, as we always expect, is that there are a few grammar issues in your popular piece. So the things I noticed this time around were a lack of commas after introductory clauses and a lack of proofreading. You're going to want to make sure you proofread, even for drafts. You should be doing that level of sort of courtesy for your reader. When you're talking about a person, especially when you're doing a profile, on the first mention, you will use their first and last name. On every subsequent mention, you will just use their last name. That's just a point of information. And then the ninth issue is something we deal with every time, which is a thoughtful reflection. And that will get turned in or submitted with your final draft. So I hope that was helpful. I enjoyed reading these, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they develop and even improve before the final versions. Okay,